Hello and welcome to another Writerly Witterings. Welcome back to my desk. Today, owing to a certain amount of family illness, I'm taking the easy approach. I'm not standing up at my writing desk, I'm sitting down here because there's a couple of things I just thought I haven't covered and it's probably about time I did. So, I've been waxing lyrical about William Hannah. These are just fabulous notebooks, really soft leather. They've got a nice suede interior, contrasting colour, and they've got some of the best paper to write on that I've ever experienced. But some people have said, oh, when they get marked, yes they will. This already has a slight mark here. It seems to have got scraped across something. I've no idea how or when, because I've taken really good care of it. And then I thought, well, what about my other notepads? Because it is something that worries people. For example, take a look at that. It has little marks all over it, scuffs and marks. Doesn't change the way it works, of course, it's still a perfectly usable notepad. Now some people might say, oh, that's horrible. How could you have something that's been so badly scuffed? Well, quite easily. I've got one that's a damn sight worse here. This is my oldest Midori Traveller's Notebook. And it has suffered enormously. It has, at the top here, a big mark where I used to have one of these clips. It has scratches. It did have a water tide mark here because it once was left in my tent and the tent blew away in a very bad storm and the whole of the notepad got soaked. It's had other scratches and marks because this thing goes with me everywhere. So it doesn't bother me that it looks as though it's had a life because it just shows that I've used it and abused it over many years. And to give you an idea how much I've used it and abused it, this is a couple of packets full of diaries in that one. I've got a Citridori file wallet here. I must admit, Citridori are one of those firms, they do English papers, they do notebooks, they do all sorts, and they are astonishingly well made, and the quality of the paper is exceptionally good. One thing I really like is this style of dot grid, where the dots aren't laid out in a square format, they're laid out askew. Sounds weird, doesn't it? But you can still make squares because every other line they're on a square. But it just gives you a little bit of additional help when you want to do a diagonal. So it's different, but I like it. It's also very, very full fat paper. As you can see, there's no bleed through or feathering or anything on Citridori paper. So I can recommend them. They also do these notepads which are fantastic expanding files for your old notebooks. So you can get all of your old notebooks and they all fit. So that gives you an indication of how often I've been using this thing anyway. This I've had, I think, since about 2012. And it's not just a Midori notebook. It also has a business card section, which I made myself from an old diary. I've got some... This is not paper, this is Tyvek. It was an A4 envelope which I cut down to fit, and it makes a really useful, strong insert. I did originally have one of the Midori Ziploc inserts, which seemed like a good idea, but the plastic degraded and it fell apart fairly quickly, so I thought, well, actually I could make something myself out of Tyvek. That's never going to degrade. It is incredibly strong imitation paper. So these things get a lot of use. That one's my day-to-day one. This I tend to use for sketching and drawing. This is undoubtedly going to get marked. It will do. But I think that when they get marked, these things take on a slightly different character. It's a sign that they've been used and enjoyed for a long time. There's nothing really clever about them. And the most advanced section of them, I think, is where you have the Midori stamp. This one, as you can see, was actually stamped for me, which I thought was a nice trick. These are still going to be always in my pocket when I go out and about. This is much more something that I'll take to business meetings or will leave at home and use up there. I will also still be using my Leuchtturm and other notepads because they are brilliant, some of these, and they allow me, especially the dot grid version of the Leuchtturm, the bullet journal style, they allow me to work on different projects simultaneously because they've got multiple ribbons. Is that necessary? Of course not. I could use multiple bits of paper stuck in there and that would work just as well. But the fact that they're ribbons that are functioning parts of the spine of the book just means that they're that little bit easier. And I start a new project in here every so often, and when I start it I put down the characters and I put down the characteristics of the people, and then I move on to the plot and all of the other aspects of the story that I need to think about. So for example, here was one book, a whole bunch of characters, all of the different names, their different positions and so on, and then each of the different scenes, the orange line indicates where there's a different day, and I can go through, I can sort out which scenes I need to change, which scenes I need to move, which need to be removed, and then at the end of it, general notes about characters, general notes about the locations, general notes about the storyline. Everything is in here and everything has its own little ribbon to direct me to the relevant spot. That's great. And then when I'm out walking the dogs, in between doing emails on my phone, I pick up this and I make notes in it about what's just occurred to me while I'm out walking. So notepads don't have, because I have had people say, well, surely you only have the one notepad, that's all you need, isn't it? No, I have a need for multiple notepads because this one, for example, I'm gradually coming down to the idea is either the very end of the day or the beginning of the day. I put my to-do list in it because it's 5 minutes of peace and quiet when I can think about what I actually need to do that day. That's when this one gets used. For journals, well, I'm not really a journaler, I've decided, but this has a brilliant diary system that gives you a month to a view and then reflect on the month past and what do you want to do for the month in the future. That's something I'm gradually starting to use more and more. It works really well, I'm very pleased with that. There's other bits of organising paperwork you can buy from the William Hanna group as well. These, well, that's for sketching and enjoying myself. This is my main workhorse when I'm out and about because it's slim enough it will fit in any pocket, and that makes a lot of sense. Now of course not everybody is going to like the fact that their books get marked. Not everybody likes the leather to get these honourable scars. If that's the case, Leuchtturm, Bond travel gear, there are lots of different hard-backed books which won't show marks. These are very robust plastic covered books. But for me, there is nothing quite like the look and feel of a leather notebook that's been well used. Yes, it's going to get marked. It'll get little scratches, like that one on the back. It'll get other marks, no doubt. But it's just proof of honourable service. Like this poor old devil that's suffered so much over the years. Horses for courses. If you want something that's leather and does get marked, you know where to go. If you want something that's leather and will get marked for at home, you know where to go. And if it's other stuff you're looking for, the good thing about wanting to be involved in stationery is there's always a lot of options for you. And now I think I've spoken for long enough, and a man's come to deliver at my door, so I'm going to say thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please go to the link at the bottom. There's a link to Patreon where you can help support this channel. And then beyond the channel, if you'd like to put any comments in, I always try to respond as quickly as possible. Comments down the bottom, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button if you want to be notified when there's another one coming through, and share it and like it and all those good things. You know what you're doing. And apart from that, I'll go back to my tea now, and then I've got to crack on with a bit of work before my boy's ill again. My son's off school right now. He's not feeling very well. In fact, he's been sick a few times.